Well, hold on, folks. If you thought the first wave of Obamacare insurance cancellations was awful, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. The next wave expected to hit small business workers. 40 million of them work for companies with small group insurance plans that may be affected by Obamacare the same way the individual policies were. And one Blue Cross Blue Shield company warning that 99.5% of their small group plans will be affected. So should you be worried? Hi, everybody. I'm David Asman. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus with Mr. Steve Forbes, Rich Karlgaard, Elizabeth McDonald, Mike Ozanian, Rick Unger, and John Tamny. Rich, here we go again, but in spades.
Yeah, 2014 is going to be a train wreck. You have 40 million Americans who work for companies with 100 employees or fewer. Aetna's CEO says the premiums for those workers are going to go up 20 to 50% over the course of 2014. And even the government's own Health and Human Resources says that up to 80% of those workers could lose their coverage.
Yeah, that was actually based on an IRS report. They were using information from HHS. But, Rick, ironically, a lot of these letters that are going to go out to these small plans are going to happen in October, just before the elections. Right. That's dangerous for the Democrats.
And it's actually interesting. Just a couple of fast corrections. They're not going to lose their coverage. They're going to see their coverage change. It has to change because of because of the requirements of the law.
Exactly.
However, I'm going to make a prediction for you, a little surprise prediction. Keep something in mind. Individual insurance, the insurance companies have wanted out of that business for years. They don't make money. Small business, they do make money. You watch. There will be an accord between now and October, mainly for the reason that you just raised, David. Nobody wants to go into the election with this issue being a problem. There will be an accord that will smooth the way so that this works out much better than it did last year.
Steve Forbes, I'm just wondering if Republicans would want an accord, this coming right before the elections. The fact is that we've seen 6 million individual policies affected by Obamacare, and we are about to see 40 million people affected by this change because of Obamacare.
Yeah, and in terms of an accord, you don't have to worry about Republicans or Congress. They'll just do it anyway. Why let the law get in the way? but in terms of impacting small business, we're going to
talk about that, by the way, in the C segment. But go ahead.
But in terms of small businesses, this is hurting the economy. It's another layer of uncertainty. You don't know what your true labor costs are going to be, and so instead of growing 4 or 5% this year, which we should have done, we'll be lucky to get 3%.
Yeah.
Small businesses are the source of jobs, and they've not been creating them. This is the worst recovery for job creation, especially from small businesses, since the war.
And these 40 million people, we're not just speaking hypothetical, John Tamny. Already we are hearing real stories about real people in real companies. This guy named Steve Lohman, he's a small business owner in Pittsburgh, telling the Washington Post that the Aetna PPO plan he offers his 38 employees is going to be discontinued at the end of this year. He has been offered a new Aetna policy, but the premiums are 40% higher, and other insurers' rates are very similar.
Well, it's really very simple. Small businesses, by virtue of being small, often lack the means to offer gold-plated health plans, so logic dictates that a lot of these policies will be canceled or the cost will rise. And when you look at it in a more broad sense, President Obama talks a big game about helping the common man and the poor, but as every policy from increasing the minimum wage to wealth distribution to Obamacare itself harms the poor people, it almost gives you the impression that he hates the people that he intends to help.
Well, in EMAC, it's bad enough to go after small businesses, but the businesses very often will pass on some of the costs to the individual workers.
Yeah, and you wonder when the small business guy is going to get a break, given all the other breaks and delays that the president has already given to other, political constituencies. I mean, this is turning into one big whack-a-mole of a bill, the law is. And so, but the thing is, here's what I'm hearing is that, and the Wall Street Journal reported on this too, if that small business offers a cheap plan and a catastrophic plan, along with the other government-mandated plans, that might be a loophole that small business can go through. And then what's also stinks here, though, for the small business guys is the government did delay what's called the Small Business Shop Exchange for a year, so they can't even get on that. And I'll tell you something, again, this is becoming a whack-a-mole bill. We got to see if the government will step in, the administration will step in and do the right thing by small businesses.
Yeah, well, Mike Ozanian, there are legs to these problems, too, as we say in the business. There are all sorts of ways it's going to affect the economy. Maybe that's one of the reasons the economy isn't growing the way we want it to, right?
Well, of course, David. Obamacare increases or raises taxes 20 times on small business owners. There are 20 different taxes that are either new or have been increased. And as Steve just alluded to, you have to ask yourself, since small businesses are the primary engine of job growth in this country, why are so many people not even in the labor force anymore? This is the lowest labor participation rate this country has had since the Depression. The president doesn't care. What he's interested in is getting through his law, even if he has to lie about it for years so it'll get passed.
Well, Rich Karlgaard, that's an excellent point. The fact is, we're always talking about jobs. We're always concerned about job growth. It's not doing what it should be doing. Everybody agrees on that. And it is those small businesses. That's where the new jobs are created.
Yeah, in past recoveries, small businesses in the first year of a recovery will create something like 3/4 of the new jobs. And as Steve Forbes points out, they have been missing in action in this recovery, and that's why we have an unemployment rate around 7.5% and this abysmal job participation record. But look, this president is on the record for saying that elections are about punishing your friends and rewarding or punishing your enemies and rewarding your friends, and small business owners are in the main Republicans. So it's not really a surprise that this administration has been anti-small business.
Well, that's an interesting charge. I'm sure Rick would dispute it. Rick, what do you think about that? Is it just coincidental that the people getting hurt the hardest by this are mostly Republicans?
I'm not sure I buy into the premise. Look, what everybody keeps forgetting is that small businesses are the ones who are going to be getting a special tax credit for the first time to help them to get more people that they employ into the program. So that's a pretty big deal, although you may not want to acknowledge that. That's not my idea of trying to punish anybody.
Yeah, but Steve, the fact is that the National Federation of Independent Small Business, they're not happy about it. They say they'd rather go back to the old ways and get these new tax exemptions because there are too many complications involved in that.
Yeah, and also it's a way of punishing you if they don't like you. You just suddenly don't qualify for those exemptions. One of the things that's come out is how vague the language is in the law and the regulations, which they can interpret any way they want. So why not just make it simple, let the market do it, which it always works when you allow it to.
And John Tamny, then there's a problem of credibility. On the one hand, who are you going to believe? The Obama administration has been lying all along about who will be affected and who will not be, or the small businesses themselves who are saying very openly and honestly that they're scared to death of what's going to happen?
I'm always going to believe private commerce over any administration in power, and certainly this one. I mean, the beauty of this is that everyone's realizing that labor is a cost. They are raising the cost of hiring workers. That's a problem. The nice thing for the liberal left in this country is they are discovering that when you offer something very fancy, it's going to cost someone, and right now it's costing the businesses in this country, and it's showing up in hiring records.
Emac, what about Rick's point? And I think it's a pretty good one. The administration doesn't want 40 million voters to get angry right before the next election. Is there likely to be some kind of deal before these 40 million people are going to be hit by this?
Yeah, you would think so. You would think they would have some kind of IQ down there to do something to help out. Here's the problem. I hear what Rick Unger is saying about the tax credits, and it's an important one. However, at the same time, small businesses are seeing federal, state, and local taxes go up north of 50%, and that is so bad. So why is the government allowed to dole out tax credits while they're raising taxes across the board, hitting small businesses really hard, and at the same time saying, oh, you can go into the health exchanges to get your health insurance? It was just like Alice in Wonderland going through the rabbit hole.
And Mike Ozani, when you look at real periods of growth in this country, like during the Reagan administration from 1983 to about 1990, it was when all the rates came down, the tax code became more simplified, we got rid of a lot of extraneous regulations. We're going in the opposite direction now with all these extra little taxes.
Right, simple is good, complicated is bad when it comes to economic growth. And the bottom line of Obamacare for small businesses, the tax credits aren't enough to make up for the higher costs.
And the thing is about having an accord before the election. Everyone knows those things are temporary. Sometimes they don't even get enforced, so it's not going to make any real difference in people's perceptions.
Well, hold on to your wallets, folks. There's a lot more coming to this. Coming up next.